Hello everybody and welcome back. Today we are going to be doing our very first Bloomburrow set review. We've got Yanks on the call. Welcome, Yanks.
Good to be back, everybody.
Are you excited to check out White?
I'm excited. Not as excited as you are, clearly, because that will never be the case with this set.
This set is amazing. If you guys missed our introduction to Bloomburrow, make sure you guys check that video out. We went over new mechanics, returning mechanics, and all the different draftable archetypes and signposts. So that'll help you guys in the evaluations that you will see here on today's episode. Today we'll be doing all of the white cards, and then future episodes we will be going over every single card in the set. So make sure you guys like and subscribe so you guys can come back and see those videos. All right, let's go ahead and just jump straight in with White, and we're going to be starting with B, Banishing Light, 3 mana for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile a non-land permanent an opponent controls until Banishing Light leaves the battlefield. So these are usually pretty close to White's premium removal, right, Yanks?
I think this just is White's premium removal. It's non-land permanent, 3 mana. I mean, it's just a reprint we've seen before. Nice simple card to get us started with.
I want to say that, like, I'm a little off of premium removal from the last few sets. I mean, usually it's like straight up 8. It's the best of the best. It's like pack one, pick one most of the time. It just doesn't seem to cut it anymore. Most of the cards are giving you, most of the good cards are giving slightly better value than that premium removal can keep up with. So also enchantments are a little bit vulnerable. So I am going to rate this at a 7.
I think I'm still giving this an 8. This is just so flexible because it doesn't just hit creatures.
It does, yeah. There's so many creatures now that can remove them. I don't know. I've felt like the days of like Murder and Banishing Light being premium 8s just doesn't feel good enough anymore. So I think I'm coming off of a little bit, but we'll see. All right, next up we have Beza, the Bounding Spring. There's a whole cycle of these, 4 mana for, I'll let you take over, my bad.
4 mana for a 4/5 legendary elemental elk. When this enters, create a treasure token if an opponent controls more lands than you. You gain 4 life if an opponent has more life than you. Create 2 1/1 blue fish tokens if an opponent controls more creatures than you. And draw a card if an opponent has more cards in hand than you.
Now, it's important to note this stuff is like sort of commandery themed, but it's really good no matter what, because you're going to get some number of these even in a 1v1 match, and any number is fine, and a 4/5 for 4 mana is great, right?
Sure, it's pretty easy to play this on turn 5 and let them have 5 land, like on the draw, and let them have 5 lands and just play it before you make your land drops. You at least get that treasure token.
Yeah.
So you're probably going to get something. If you're on the play, there's a reasonable chance you have fewer cards. So it's going to be pretty unlikely that this is only going to be a 4 mana 4/5. And if it is, that means you're ahead on everything. So you're fine.
Yep. It means you're ahead on everything, but I think the chances are you'll get 1 or 2 triggers from this no matter what your situation is. So this feels pretty strong. None of those things are outrageous, so that way it's like massively impacting the board if your opponent has the removal for this. But I think this is a very, very strong card. I love the value. I'm going to give this an 8.
I'm with you on 8.
All right, sweet. Next up, we have the Bravekin Duo. A rabbit mouse, 1/1 for 1. You pay 1, tap it, target creature gets +1/+1 till end of turn, activate only as a sorcery. I love it. I love the idea that the 2 creatures are helping each other out. I love how cute it is. I just can't get enough of this stinking set. I never want to leave, ever.
One of the things we covered in the intro is how each color pair has its own creature type that it cares about. And so having a rabbit mouse means it fits nicely into both green-white for rabbits and red-white for mice.
Yep. Rating wise, it is a little low impact and it only activates as a sorcery, so I'm not super about this, but there is a world in which you do want a high volume of rabbits and mice, and also there are a certain number of decks that will really want this as a 1-drop. So I'm going to say it's like an okay playable. I'm going to give it a 4. It'll see play, but more often than not, I think I'm going to cut it.
I need a specific reason to want this card, so I'm with you on like a 4.
All right.
Next up, we have Brightblade Stoat. 2 mana, 2/2, Weasel Soldier. First strike and lifelink, and I think that's the fewest words I've seen on a card in a long time.
Yes, I love that the little weasels are the stabby stabs because it's so fitting. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. You guys have never really seen me get like this, but I am a girl. I'm so excited for Bloomburrow. I don't know why. I'm so sorry. Yes. Two very good keywords on a 2-mana 2/2. I'm in.
2-mana 2/2s don't quite cut it anymore on their own, but if you're going to give me 2 keywords, I'll take them.
And you put this in Azorius where like your birds are constantly putting +1/+1s. They're, giving leap. They're doing all sorts of silly shenanigans. And like I'm sure Selesnya is going to have tokens and counters to put onto this. Yes, I'm here for it. On its own, it's like still not the most impactful, but I'm going to say it's a 6. I don't think I'm cutting this ever. I'm pretty happy when I find it.
I'm going to give it a 5 just because it does not play into any relevant creature type, which I think is going to be important in this set.
Fair, fair. Next up, we have our first class. We have the Builder's Talent. It comes in with the ability for 2 mana. When it enters, you get an 0/4 white wall creature token with Defender. You can level it up for 1 whenever 1 or more non-creature, non-land permanents you control enter with a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Sorry, let me read that again. Whenever 1 or more non-creature, non-land permanents you control enter. Okay, so like a Banishing Light, you get to put a counter. Great. Okay, and then 5 mana. When this class becomes level 3, return target non-creature, non-land permanent from your graveyard to the battlefield. I mean, it's a build-around deck, so the average deck's not going to want this. It's kind of a split rating.
You have to find a deck that has enough of these things. Artifacts, enchantments, whatever. This is not an enchantment artifact-themed set.
Mm-hmm.
We certainly do still have some, but you see we have classes, so we don't even have sagas that would play really nicely with this because they go to the graveyard all the time. I think this seems to be like it's going to require too much work.
Agreed. And I think there will be a deck for it. It's just not the average. So I'm going to say this is like a 3.
I like it as a 3 as well.
All right.
Caretaker's Talent, our second class. 2 and a white, enters with level 1. Whenever 1 or more tokens you control enter, draw a card. This triggers only once each turn. Costs a white mana to go to level 2, which then lets you create a token that's a copy of target token you control. 3 and a white to go to level 3. Creature tokens you control get +2/+2.
I think this is going to be good in any deck.
You need to make a lot of tokens, but that's not going to be hard in a set where Offspring is a key mechanic.
I was thinking you don't need to even make that many. Like, yes, you need to make a few, but like...
You only need to actually make a few to turn a profit. I just think you have to have the capability of making a bunch to actually get to that point.
I think the number of token makers I have to have in my deck is not that high compared to what you might expect. And I might just be a little high on it, but I think if you are just situationally getting to draw 1 card, copy 1 creature, and those 2 get +2/+2, I think this is like a solid card. So I think it has incredible ability to play up, but most white decks I think will be able to support this in some level. So I am going to give it... On its own, I'm going to give it a 6, and I think it has the ability to play up massively to like a 9. I think this can win games.
There will probably be decks where that's true. We're actually at the kind of the same place for 6. I think it needs more support than you do, but I just don't think that's going to be hard to do in this.
And that's my point, is like I think it won't be. It'll be sort of just happening every time. I feel like I will not cut this, if ever.
It's probably true.
All right, so let's keep it going. Carrot Cake. 2 mana, when Carrot Cake enters the battlefield, and when you sacrifice it, create a 1/1 rabbit creature token. So for 2 mana, you're going to get 2 1/1s, and 2 more mana, you're going to get to also gain 3 life. And there's like some food synergies as well, right? What was the color pairing that has food?
Black, green mostly, but forage in general.
Forage, okay. Oh, look at the art. Oh my god. I just saw it.
I mean, that's what Carrot Cake looks like, right?
No, but look at the bunnies in the background. They're so cute. I think this card is fine. The two 1/1s that you're gonna make and a scry to boot, you just added a little extra on there for no reason. Synergizes well with everything these colors are wanting to do. Lots of tokens, lots of go wide. I'm here for it. I think this is probably going to see a decent amount of play.
This is probably mostly a green-white card, just because that's the go wide form archetype. Plus, it's the rabbit archetype, so it works on both ends. But there's some use for it in other white decks as well. So I do agree that it's going to be played fairly often.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this a 5, with the ability to play up in the right decks.
5 ticking up in green-white. Yeah, I like that.
I don't see myself cutting it a ton, so pretty fine to have it.
From and Get It. I love pun names. 1 white mana for an instant with Gift of Food. Target creature you control gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If the gift was promised, that creature also gains indestructible until end of turn.
I like this. I like that flexibility. Sometimes you don't need the indestructible, but it's always good to have access to it. Yeah, this is neat. Best of both worlds, kind of. And a food token I'm not really scared to give my opponent.
No, I don't love it because this kind of card is going to be at its best in aggressive decks, so giving them some extra life isn't ideal, but it's certainly worth the trade-off here.
Yeah, and not necessarily aggressive decks, just like combat-heavy decks, creature-oriented decks. If I've got some good top-end Selesnya stuff, I'm pretty happy to protect them with this. So I'm not cutting the first one of these. This is a 6 for me.
I've got it as a 5.
I mean, I tend to be a little high on just like, especially the 1-drop premium-y combat tricks, which I know you don't like to run ever. So that makes sense.
Correct.
Next up, we've got Dawn's Truce. 2 mana for an instant. Gift a card. You and permanents you control gain hexproof till end of turn. If a gift was promised, permanents you control also gain indestructible until end of turn. So that's really good against like board clears and neat things. You can just use it as like a 2 mana instant protect your thing, or you can completely blow someone out in like massive combat. I think this is certainly, I'm certainly never cutting this.
No, there's just too much potential to get like it's not really a 3-for-1 because you're giving them a card too, but like a 3-for-2 kind of scenario with this. And if you can just get away with just the hexproof, great. You don't have to give them a card.
Yep. So rating wise,
I've got this at a 5.5, a little better than the last card.
I'm gonna stick with a 6 as well. I think this is to the point where it's always making the deck, and I'm always pretty happy about that. So for me, it's a 5.
A 5 or a 6?
Oh, 6. Sorry, 6.
Dewdrop Cure. 2 and a white for a sorcery with gift a card. Return up to 2 target creature cards, each with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If the gift was promised, instead return up to 3 target creature cards, each with mana value 2 or less to the battlefield from your graveyard.
You gotta have the right deck, but there is a home for this where you have a lot of high value 2-drops, and you're pretty excited to bring them back. But I feel like the average deck is cutting this.
The best things with reanimation type spells usually are that you're trading up on mana, and you're at best getting a 1 mana advantage from this. So I don't love that. You really need particularly strong, probably rare level 2-drops for this to be good.
Agreed. Or you just want to be like very, very aggressive Boros, where sometimes like maybe you have some ETBs that when it ETBs, give a creature +1 in Menace or something. But like, again, those have to be cheap, which I don't see happening super frequently. And I would have to have at least upwards of 5 of those 2-drops in my hand or in my deck that I'd be happy to bring back. Which isn't going to be the average deck. So for me, this is just going to be a 3.
I like it at 3.
And then, again, there will be a deck that wants this at like a 5, but simply not your typical deck. Next up, we have Driftgloom Coyote, 5 mana for a 3/4 Elemental Coyote. When Driftgloom Coyote enters exile, target creature an opponent controls until this leaves the battlefield. If that creature had power 2 or less, put a +1/+1 counter onto the coyote. That seems great.
Anytime you get the sort of banishing light type effect on a creature, it's always a solid card in limited.
Yeah, gives you a nice little bonus too if you just want to play it on curve, eat something smaller. You don't necessarily get a punishment for that. So it balances the card's power level on its own, which is neat.
This is a little bigger than you typically see this effect on. A lot of times it's like a 2/2 or a 1/3. I'm thinking like Banisher Priest or Fiend Hunter.
Which are easier to remove.
Say it's both good and bad. It's easier. This is harder to remove, but obviously also correspondingly is much more expensive. It's a couple mana more expensive.
Yep, harder to cast. Double white is relevant as well, so this is going to be tougher in like 3-color decks. But I don't see myself cutting one of these if I'm in white. No. Pretty happy for the tempo. So 6?
Probably even a little higher, maybe like 6.5.
Okay. Next up.
Essence Channeler. 1 and a white for a 2/1 Bat Cleric. As long as you've lost life this turn, this has flying and vigilance. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on this, and when it dies, put its counters on target creature you control.
Let's go, bats! Let's freaking go! I love Orzhov cleric decks, and now they're bats. They're so cute. All right, I'm super excited.
Would you say this card is baddie?
Yeah, I'm baddie. You guys remember Ferngully? I love baddie.
Oh, this card's great. The Orzhov bat deck. Orzhov's theme is all about you losing or gaining life, so this fits perfectly into that theme. You even get some of the bonuses back when it dies. This is the kind of 2-drop you want if you want to play 2-drop here.
Absolutely. This one's a little tough for me to evaluate because I feel like the life gain has not been supported in the last couple of sets, which is weird because it was such a common reoccurring like theme archetype that we saw in every single limited environment for a long time, and now it's been very subpar, if at all possible. It's been like little tidbits of it to where you're like, ooh, life gain deck, and it just doesn't exist. So I don't know how well supported, but I feel like from what we've seen with the signpost cards and stuff, we will see that here. So just going on, a limb and assuming that this will be ported, I really like it. I think it's going to be the fact that the counters come back, which is really neat. It doesn't fly all the time. I'm going to go on a limb and say this is one of the like slightly lower impacty ones. I'm going to say this is like a 7 in the average deck, average life gain deck, not the nutty bomb where this just goes off.
7's where I have it with big upside. The life gain portion, I'm hoping the sort of relatively heavy food theme running through this deck will help with the life gain.
All right. Oh, we did see that life linking First Striker too. Like that's pretty relevant, right?
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have Feather or Flight. 2 mana. Oh, look at him. Aw. Like it's like in priests used to have a feather to jump off like cliffs and stuff in World of Warcraft. And if you
the slow fall feather.
And I used to sometimes jump off a cliff and not realize I was out of feathers and I would just die. But that's what this reminds me of. All right, Aura, Flash, enchant creature. Whenever it enters, draw a card. Love that. Enchant creature +1/+0 and has flying. Yes, I love these. These are fantastic. They replace themselves. Play them cautiously. Make sure you don't play them into a ton of open mana with your opponent full of good cards. But I think this card can win some games. I'm really high on these.
It's an interesting Flash Aura that's not really a combat trick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like I'm almost never playing this inside of combat. This is like, end of turn, I have 2 mana up, flash it in, cycle it, and give something I care about flying.
Yeah, I, cast it on their end step, surprise them with some big aggressive flyers they can't deal with. But I am also really excited to just play this in Selesnya and just, like, get them. Like, just eat all of their flyers on my, 4/4 for 4 that green should certainly not be flying. I think this is a good card. I'm pretty high on it. Honestly, I think things like this win games, which makes me want to be super high, but realistically, I should say it's like a 7.
So as usual, I'm a little lower, but I think I've got it at a 6. I'm not cutting the first one of these.
Yeah.
I'm just not excited about it either.
All right. Now we've got the Stabby Stab Mice. I'm so sorry. I'm so excited about this set. I cannot freaking wait. We have Flowerfoot Swordmaster, 1 mana for a 1/2 with Offspring, and Valiant. Whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or an ability for the first time, you get +1/+0 for all your mice you control. So they would trigger each other. If you could target them both, this and its offspring, they would both get +2/+0, which is cool, plus any other mice that you might see. We did see like a 1-drop mouse. I think that's going to be the creature type archetype. Pretty happy. This is very high impact for a 1-drop.
A split card, right? Not a split rating, but a split card almost in a 1 mana 1/2 or 3 mana for a 1/2 and a 1/1.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of 1-drop you do want to play in not what doesn't always have to be the most aggressive deck because it can play as a 3-drop.
Yeah, actually playing it for 1, I'm still pretty happy for. If you get it a little bit later with the offspring, still pretty happy. So it's nice that it fills out that curve and helps take it to a 3-drop. Normally, if you feel like a little underwhelmed if you play it on one side versus the other, cards that are like dual playable as far as like your curve, right? A lot of times it's one is way more optimal than the other. This one I feel like is strong enough to be a good curve for an aggressive deck, and also the offspring is strong enough for the 3-drop slot. So I doubt I'm cutting this, but you have to have the backup, right, for the Valiant side of this for it to be good.
You both need the Valiant, the targeting ability as well as the mice.
Yeah. I mean, they do help each other. So, like, that is, you've built in 2 mice here, which is not bad. I think in the average deck that's not super Valiant gung-ho, I'm just going to say that this is like a 5?
I've got it as a 4.
Oh.
I'm not. So part of this is my play style. I don't ever want to play this for 1 mana. I will be very unhappy to cast this on 1.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, we are quite a bit off on this one in comparison to some of the other ones. I was even leaning a little higher, like 5.5, so that makes sense. I'm going to be playing these creature type decks. You will be steering away from them, so that's about right. Next up, we've got... Go ahead.
Next up, we've got Harvest Right Host. 3 mana, 2 and a white for a 3/3 Rabbit Citizen. Whenever this or another rabbit you control enters, target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Then draw a card if this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn. I kind of like this card. 3/3 gets give it something a little bit of a bonus when it first comes in, and then if you have anything that can put multiple creatures, any offspring card, any token maker, you're getting to draw a card. That's pretty good.
Well, it specifically says it has to be a rabbit.
Oh, yes, good point.
So
any rabbit. I think I'm staring too closely at the very next card, which makes 3 rabbits.
Now, I don't necessarily think that that's as big of a drawback as it normally would be, because the set is so sort of like creature type specific. I think that there'll be plenty of support, and if you have rabbits with offspring, then you just trigger this twice automatically. That's pretty neat.
Yep.
So 3/3 for 3, I'm on board. I doubt I'm cutting this, even with minimal rabbits. I think every deck will have some to make it worth keeping, and it's just a fine rated creature on its own. So rating wise, without a lot of help, a 5, with some ability to play up in rabbits specifically, which will be a very particular archetype.
I like that. I think you're probably not, like you said, you're probably not cutting it, but it's not exciting unless you get a bunch of those rabbits.
Yep. All right. Next up, we've got Hop to It. We have create 3 1/1 white rabbit creature tokens for 3 mana. That's a great rate, honestly. I'm here for this card.
It fits so perfectly into everything Green-White's trying to do, right?
Yep.
It's trying to go wide, and it's trying to do rabbits.
Yep, I love it. I'm so glad it's rabbits. I'm glad it's not like one of 3 different types of tokens, which could be more flexible in the other white color pairings, but commit We're here for rabbits. The rabbits, they breed. They breed quick. Let's do it. I think this is good in any color pairing. Obviously better in the Selesnya rabbits. So I doubt I'm cutting this.
Yeah, I'll be playing this in any white deck.
Again, it's not the highest impact, so you have to be a little bit, toned down, and in the right deck it's going to be a big enabler, but it is just 3 1/1s. So, rating-wise, what are we thinking?
I like this as I was going to say 6, maybe it might be a 5.5.
I'm still in the 5 range as well, without it being specific to whatever the rabbit synergies are. I don't know how many of those will be, how many of the rabbit synergies will not be in Selesnya specifically, right? If it's supported or not in white on its own. So I'm going to be a little bit more cautious and give it a 5.
But it's Wabbit season.
It is Wabbit season.
Speaking of Wabbit season, Intrepid Rabbit. 2 and a white for a 3/2 rabbit soldier with offspring 1. When this creature enters, target creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn.
3 mana, 3/2 that comes in with 1 +1/+1, and if you pay 4, you get an additional 1/1 and 2 +1/+1s.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that's impactful enough for me to be playing it. Again, nothing flashy, but I like the offspring flexibility. I like the creature type is relevant. I doubt I'm cutting this. I like it a little bit better than the last one just because it is more impactful on its own. 5.5.
I can get behind 5.5. That works.
All right. Jackdaw Savior. 3 mana for a 3/1 flyer. When it or another creature you control flying dies, so we're looking at Azorius here, return another target creature card with lesser mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield. Oh, look, he's holding a little rat, and he's bringing him to battle. So cute.
Interesting that this is the first bird we've seen. It's probably just a trick of the alphabet, but we've seen a bunch of rabbits and mice so far, and not a lot of birds and bats.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the support for those, so Azorius is like flyers helping non-flyers, so I'm wondering if the bulk of the flyers will be in the blue with the white being the non-flying part. If that makes sense?
Yeah, that does. It's either that or just, they happen to be in the early part of the alphabet. You get all the hop jokes and stuff like that.
Fair.
Before J.
But I would also have expected to see more bats by now, because that should be better supported in white, I would think. Because there's not a lot of this and that in the Orzhov specific. It's just bats. So, rating-wise, a 3 mana, 3-powered flyer that gets you value back? Yes? This seems like a great card. 7.5.
7.5 seems good. It can definitely play up, but it's hard to win the game on this card.
Yep.
Jolly Gerbils. 2 mana, 2/3, 1 and a white. Hamster Citizen. There is no hamster theme. Whenever you give a gift, draw a card.
That's nice. Yeah. Especially because a lot of the gifts are pretty low, low effort. Like foods and stuff are fine. Yeah. Cards are usually they give you a big bonus if you're giving cards. And also, important to note, it's a 2 mana, 2/3. That's great.
I like turning, here's a food, I get a bonus and a card. Or even if I have to give them a card, okay, we both draw 1 and I get the bonus.
On an already well-statted creature. What's
exactly.
not to love? 7.
7 sounds good.
All right. Next up, we have the Life Creed Duo. 2 mana for a 1/2 bat bird with flying. Whenever another creature you control enters, you gain a life. So this is very Orzhov, but I'm fine to play this in literally any deck. I like flyers. I like the 2-drop.
Na bat bird.
Also love that this fills the creature type for both Azorius and Orzhov, so that way you don't have to pick and choose. If you're Azorius, you're still going to get the extra life as a nice bonus. If you're Orzhov, then you still get a bat that is activating all of your other stuff. So I'm here for this card. I don't think I'm cutting it in just about any deck, So I'm going to say a 6 in the average with some upside in the Orzhov or the birds.
I like that. I like that these duos. I think there's a full cycle of all these cards that have these dual creature types. I love that they point to 2 decks instead of 1.
Absolutely. Next up,
Mabel's Metal. 1 and a white for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Up to 1 other target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn.
Combat Tricks. I don't hate this.
No, I think it's, to me at least, significantly worse than like the 1-drop one we saw.
This has really good possibilities in like Boros themed decks. I like when sometimes I make blocks assuming that they have 1 combat trick, and I will make blocks in such a way where I'm like, I'm fine with one of these things getting eaten by something. This puts you in a situation where you can line things up really well for some very big blowouts, or just 3 damage for 2 mana, not bad in the right aggressive deck. But again, it's one of those cards where it is very deck specific, and you know you're not going to want to be running this in your 10 creature Orzhov deck or whatever. Does that make sense?
You can play more than 10 creatures in a deck?
Mm-hmm. It's allowed.
Huh. I thought that was against the rules.
No, it is not. So rating wise, I am going to stick with this at a 5, but I think it'll see a decent amount of play for me.
5 seems fine. It's certainly not unplayable. It's just not exciting.
Yep. All right. Next up, we have the Mouse Trapper. 3 mana for a 3/2 with Flash and Valiant. Whenever it's targeted by a spell or ability for the first time each turn, tap target creature and opponent controls. That's another reason you might want the duo tappy tapper, right? Like the Mabel's Metal. True. You get extra Valiant stuff. Oof.
Yep. That's a good point.
That's going to be spicy for sure. I do like that. Yeah, I've seen this before. It used to be like if you play a heroic spell or something, you get this ability with the exact same mana cost and stat line. Tapping creatures down in a Valiant deck when you're probably triggering a bunch of other stuff seems good. What?
I'm trying to remember the card. I was trying to remember the name of the card you were talking about.
Dominaria United. It was like a girl.
The one that did it for historic.
Historic.
Yeah.
I think I said heroic, but I meant historic. Yeah, same stat line, same mana cost, and it was a freaking house. When built correctly, that deck was good.
Agreed.
That one was more tempo based. This is more aggro.
You could abuse that one because you could do it multiple times a turn. Here you can only do it once. But I like this. This is the flash is nice. Surprise attacker if you play it at the end of your turn.
Yeah, flash it in at the end of their turn, and then tap, give it +2/+2, tap their blocker, dome them for 5 plus whatever else you had on the board. Hell yeah.
Exactly.
I think this card is going to be great in those aggressive decks. It's also a mouse, which is relevant. A lot of them are soldiers, which is also, I'm wondering if that will be relevant. Soldiers is still a thing in standard, so.
Sure.
Rating-wise, I like this card. I think that they're, with minimal Valiant support, fine to have this in my deck. So 6.
6 seems good. It's a good card.
All right.
Up next is Mtgnerdgirl. 1 and a white for a 3/1 mouse soldier with Valiant. Whenever this becomes the target of a spell or ability you control for the first time each turn, it gets +0/+2 until end of turn. You can pay 1 to sacrifice this to destroy target artifact or enchantment. I love getting that ability for free in my decks.
Absolutely. More Valiant, more mouse. What's not to love here? We're seeing this is going to be very easily supported.
We've had I don't know if we've had it in the last couple sets, but for a while we were always getting these kind of 3/1s that were really hard to trade with and beat in combat. Sometimes it was like you could discard a card to give them indestructible, or here it's target them and you get you can no longer just trade with your 1/3 or something like that. They've always played pretty well.
Oops, didn't mean for that to pop up. Trying to think of rating wise. I mean, it just does everything I want. I'm less excited about the Valiant part of this in my mouse aggressive go wide deck, but it's nice for threats of activation. You can attack with it and then You know, you could target it with like, you know, some stupid ability that doesn't help, but then they can't block it with a 2/2 or a 1/1 anymore, right? So the threat is nice. I think the Destroy Artifact and Enchantment is really where it's at for me. I'm never cutting the first one of these. I think this is a 6.5.
I think I'm at 6, and it's like to me, it's a slightly worse Cathar Commando, because I'd rather have Flash than the Valiant ability. But that card always saw play, and this is still good enough to play.
Yeah. More relevant creature type. I'm just so high on keeping enchantment and artifact removal in my deck for free.
Agreed.
On a creature that I already kind of want in my deck to fill my curve anyway. I'm very high on that ability. Honestly, it wins games.
It's so frustrating when you have a bomb enchantment or artifact, because you think it's probably pretty safe, at least game 1, and then nope.
Yep, the aggro player just gets to kill it for free with the card that's already hit you for 6.
Yep.
Next up, we've got the Parting Gust, 2 mana for an instant. You can gift a tapped fish. Exile target non-token creature. If the gift was promised, return that creature to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it at the beginning of the next end step.
If the gift wasn't promised.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I was like, wait a minute. Okay.
So it's 2 mana, basically turn a creature into a fish. Or you can give them or you can use it to like flicker your own stuff that you want.
Flicker your own combat trick. You can, or like flicker your own thing in response to a combat trick or a removal spell. That's neat. Okay. Rating wise, this is pretty good. I tend to like flickers more than I probably should. I like the flexibility of it. I like turning things into fish. It's good removal. 2 pips of white is a little rough, but I think this seems good. Is this just an 8?
I think it is. I think if you didn't get the flexibility to flicker your stuff and it was just turning something into a fish, it wouldn't be that good. But the fact that you get both.
Agreed. So it's an 8. All right, before we move on to the next card, I want to do a quick shout out for the sponsor of the channel. That's Cool Stuff Inc. They provide everything you guys need for getting into any of your favorite TCGs, including Magic. So if you guys are interested, we have a 5% off code. You can pick up singles, dice, deck box, playmats, all of those good things. And you get 5% off with our code MNG5. And when you order, you will also get a free Nerdgirl Eldrazi Scion token with me and Hammy for free. It doesn't matter if your order is $2 or $1,000. You'll get this free token with every single order. And again, that code is MNG5. You'll find a link and a code down below in the description of the video. And if you guys do decide to support Cool Stuff, you'll be supporting my stream. I don't get a direct kickback, but they do help sponsor this channel and make it so that way I can continue to make all of this content for you guys full time. So make sure you guys please give them a chance to earn your business, because it means a lot to me and really helps support this channel. Okay, moving on.
I didn't want to interrupt while you were reading it. Do you want to... It's an Eldrazi spawn, not Scion.
Whatever.
Okay, I just didn't know if you cared.
No.
That's all.
Good watching out. Whatever. All right, you're up.
I don't really know how to pronounce this. Pileated Provisioner, maybe? 4 and a white for a 3/4 bird scout with flying. When it enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control without flying.
Oh, okay. So it's the birds helping non-birds thing. That's nice. We see this like 5 mana 3/4 birds that do a thing in most sets. They tend to be pretty okay. Cuttable, but often playable. So for me, that's just like a 5. I'm pretty happy because it fits the theme. Pretty happy to have it there. If it didn't, if it was like not a bird or whatever, then it would just be a 4 for me. But I think the bird makes me happy.
It's weird that maybe this is true with a lot of types of cards now, but I just always remember like 5 mana 3/4 flyer in like Kaladesh. You're like, oh yeah, this card's pretty good. I'm happy with this. And now it does something else. It's like, it's okay.
This kind of stuff does make me a lot happier with like that 2/2 first strike lifelinker, right? Like those are going to be so good in the bird deck.
That's true. That's definitely true. I'm with you on 5.
So rating-wise, it's going to be a 5 in the average deck, but specifically in the bird deck, I think it has some really, really good potential for some snowbally game wins.
Because as we know, the bird is the word.
Not you too. Next up, we have Rabbit Response, 4 mana for an instant. Creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn. If you control a rabbit, you will also get an additional scry. So this is just meant for the rabbit deck, but you can put it in anything. Your flyers, this is going to kill someone with flyers for sure, and the bonus scry is always nice. These are kind of a split rating card. You will want them in very specific decks, and then they will never see the light of day in the other half of your white pairings.
I love the ghostly rabbits, particularly the one that appears to be holding a carrot as a weapon.
Yeah, he's got a very cute little carrot. It's like that's the top of a staff, I think, because you can see you can see the staff run down below there.
Yeah, good call.
But yeah, I think it's very cute. I think these are split ratings. It's like a 2 and like a 6. The deck that wants it is very happy to have it.
So it's like a 6 in your decks and a 2 in mine.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Next up.
Repel Calamity. 1 and a white for an instant. Destroy target creature with power or toughness 4 or greater.
That's a great, like, instant speed 2 mana. Like, even though it's got that restriction, I'm still pretty happy with it. Also, just look at the stinking art. I'm gonna die.
This used to cost 4 mana, and it only hit power 4 or greater.
And it was and it was like sorcery too, wasn't it?
We had both. I think like Smite the Monstrous is the one that always comes to mind. Yeah, it's crazy how much better this is.
He's so cute. Look at his cloak as a leaf. Oh my god. I never want to leave this place. Ever. Rating wise, they get a little weaker in like multiples, but like I'm still running like 2 or 3 of these and being very happy. 7.5.
It's gonna be pretty rare that there's a creature that I'm desperate to kill that doesn't have either power 4 or toughness.
Yeah, agreed.
7.5 works for me.
Okay. Next up, we've got Salvation Swan, 4 mana for a 3/3 flash flying bird cleric. So we're gonna get some good value here. When it or another bird you control enters, exile up to 1 target creature you control without flying, return it to the battlefield under your control with a flying counter on it. Shut up. At the beginning of the next end step. Wow. Oh. I can't wait for someone to try to remove something and for me to put this in and then like, gotcha, it's worse now. And it's just a flash 3/3 flyer, which is good on its own. It's going to kill people. I'm here for this card. It's a bird. It does all the bird stuff that I want it to bird. Now this one, the bird is the word here. You blew your pun too early.
This one thing just to note on this card is because I could definitely see wanting to play this at the end of my opponent's turn to set it up for a big attack the next turn. Just remember, you'll need to do this at the end of their second main, not in their end step, because otherwise it won't come back until the beginning of your end step.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So you could flicker something awkwardly and weird, but oh, it's so good though. This card's gonna win games. This card's such a blowout. It's gonna make your Selesnya idiot huge and lethal. It's gonna brick their biggest removal spell. It's a decently statted flyer on its own. Do you remember when like vanilla 4 mana like 3/4 flyers were the thing?
Oh yeah.
Anyway, I love this card. This is an 8.
This card's great. You also, even though you're Exxon creature, you might be able to get a Valiant trigger off of this as well. Especially if it's something that affects other creatures, like the mice get +1/+0 or something like that.
You like an 8?
I like an 8.
Great. Next up, we've got the
Season of the Burrow, the first of our mythic cycle of paw print seasons. 3 white and a white for a sorcery. Choose up to 5 paw prints worth of modes. You may choose the same mode more than once. For 1 paw print, make a 1/1 white rabbit. For 2, exile target non-land permanent. Its controller draws a card. And for 3, return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield with an indestructible counter on it.
Yep.
So, I mean, at minimum, even if there's like nothing else I can target, I get 5/1/1s.
It seems like the going rate is 1 mana for 1 rabbit across all the cards that we've seen.
Yeah.
I like the exile, a non-land permanent. Its controller draws a card. I like that. Just turn their dragon into a card, which is fine. And you get 3 rabbits to boot. That's not a bad rate.
And you can hit your own stuff with that if there's something that no longer has any real value for you, just to draw a card.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say in response to removal, but it is sorcery speed, so that doesn't really work. Yeah, I think this whole cycle is going to be fine. I don't think it's going to blow the roof off ever. But it is pretty high impact for what you're getting, which we expect to see for a mythic. They're nothing too flashy, but I don't see myself cutting it.
I don't either. Just, I guess, one thing to beware, especially, I do think one of the scenarios you said is pretty likely, right? Exile one thing, make 3 rabbits. And if you do that and the thing you target goes away, the whole thing fizzles. You get no rabbits because that's the only target.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know, if that thing gets
if they bounce it,
flickered with the swan.
I see. Okay, well that's enough of a corner case where I don't want to think about it. So rating wise, I think none of these things are impactful enough to where I'm like super excited, but the flexibility does make me very happy. So I'm going to say 7.5.
Works for me.
All right, next up, Seasoned Warden Guard. 1 mana for a 1/3. When it attacks while you control a token, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn, and notably it's a rabbit, so you'll have lots of rabbits. So this is a 1 mana that attacks as a 3/2, pretty much. Kind of guaranteed. I'm willing to consider it a 3/2.
I'm not quite there, but I do think it'll be there most of the time.
Yeah, and it's going to enable your other rabbit stuff. It's going to 1-drops for like the Valiant deck. I think this is where these types of decks want to be, and I'm assuming you're in that deck and not something else. Also, like in the birds deck, this is going to be like a solid curve filling thing. You're going to want something like this that will attack very well, to put counters on, give flying, yada yada yada. So I'm a little higher on this just because I like what I'm seeing with these bunnies and things. 5.
5 seems fair to me.
Next up,
Strike Force. 2 and a white, 3 mana, 1/3 bird knight with flying, double strike, and vigilance.
It's a bird knight.
Sign me up.
Oh my god. Oh my god, he's so cute. Double strike, vigilant, 1/3. So good. Rating wise, let's say I like it a lot, honestly.
Especially given that we've seen a few combat tricks that are good enough to play in white. This seems pretty frightening to block or to deal with on the board.
And the Vigilant means you have to deal with it both ways. You can't even get into a racing scenario with the Boros player. It just doesn't exist. The flexibility here, the creature type, all things good. 7.5.
Probably just slightly lower at 7, but I do really like the card.
It's just seems to be like peak uncommon territory where I'm getting everything I want out of the card. Sonar Strike. 2 mana for deal 4 damage target attacking, blocking, or tapped creature. You gain 3 life if you control a bat. Cool. I like that you're getting payoffs for bats without it needing to be a dead card to everything else. Because to everyone else, this is just regular. You just get something extra special when you are in the bat deck. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's just, was it like Gideon's Response or something like that?
Gideon's Reproach?
Reproach, yes.
I got one.
That's actually even better. It's actually even better because that didn't hit tapped creatures. It was just attacking or blocking.
Yep. So rating wise, I think this is exactly where I want to be. To me, in combat, these things are pretty premium. I like this a lot. I'm going to give them a 4. I tend to run an 8. I tend to run as many of these as I can.
Uh, Probably at 7.5. I think it's just below that premium removal, but very good.
All right, next up.
Star Charter. 4 mana, 3 and a white for a 3/1 Bat Cleric with flying. At the beginning of your end step, if you gained or lost life this turn, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card with power 3 or less from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order.
That's fantastic.
You get to impulse for it and hope to hit a creature. A cheap creature, or not cheap, a low power creature, which seems to be what Orzhov is going to be a lot about.
Yeah, Orzhov's always doing that. I don't see a lot of things in white or black that are going to be bigger. And digging, what, it said 4? Yeah, 4 deep is really, really good with how often we're going to be able to gain life just from, like, our removal. Although, this is your end step, not any end step, so that's important to remember for the removal. Food is going to be neat. The life linkers. Yeah, this is a great signpost one-color card. On its own, it's a little sadly statted, right? It's a 4 mana, 3 powered flyer, not something to write home about. So you kind of want to be in bats for this. Average deck, you know, considering all of the colors, I'm going to say this is like a 5.
I think I'll probably be slightly higher. I think this is going to still be fine in Azorius because you're just going to overload their flyers, like, to block. There are, as far as I know, there are no, like, 1/1 spirit tokens that can cause those problems.
I think you're going to have better statted flyers than a 4-drop. Like, if you're not getting the bat situation here, if you're not getting the text box here, I don't think that this is going to cut it in the Azorius Flyers deck.
Maybe not. It's certainly not the most exciting in that deck.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not much higher than you, just a little bit.
I think I'd rather have the exact same stats with a bird. But I think the birds just have better stat lines for the mana cost, and then it will also trigger all your other bird stuff. So I'm going to say it's going to be a 5 on the average with the upside in bat. What was your rating?
5.5, not much higher.
Okay. Next up, we've got the Starfall Invocation. 5 mana for a sorcery. You can gift a card, destroy all creatures. If the gift was promised, return a creature card put into your graveyard this way to the battlefield under your control. So wipe the board. If you have something good, you can give them a card to keep it. I don't hate it. I like that flexibility. Board clears are great. 8.
And not even just keep it, right? You get it to come back so you can re-trigger its ETBs if it has anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, 8.
Excellent.
Next up, we have Thistledown Players. 2 and a white for a 3 mana 3/3 Mouse Bard. Whenever this attacks, untap target non-land permanent.
That's insane. It's so good. A 3 mana 3/3 in white in. That used to only be a green thing. And it's also untapping stuff. It's got a good creature type. Love it. 6.
At minimum, it just gives itself sort of pseudo-vigilance.
Mm-hmm.
But it can untap itself, so 6 works.
Next up, the Valley Quest Caller. 2 mana for a Rabbit Warrior. 2 mana 2/3. Let's go. Whenever one or more other rabbits, bats, birds, or mice you control enter, scry. Other rabbits, bats, mice, or birds get +1/+1. Oh. Wow.
It's all four of the white creature types.
This is going to be nuts in Azorius. Azorius with the birds and then the mice to, like, ground. Those two things go together so well. They're both going to get bonuses. It's a great stat. Normally our lords are understated on their own. Like, you have like a 2 mana 1/1 that lords all your stuff. This is a 2 mana 2/3. What are we doing here? This power creep is insane. Look at the little rat with the banjo. Shut up.
It's a mouse. Not a
No,
rat.
look at his tail. That's not a mouse. That's a rat.
Well, that doesn't make any sense in the card, right? You got a bat, you got a bird, you get the rabbit. That's got to be the mouse.
I guess that looks like a rat tail, though.
It does. It does. I agree. The tail does look like a rat.
Someone should tell Steve Prescott. Rating wise, this card is nuts. Even if you don't have any other synergy built around this, you're going to have a ton of synergy just on accident because it hits like literally everything you can find in these colors and every other color. So A good stat on its own. Jiminy Christmas, this is good. It doesn't win on its own, of course, but it's going to be responsible for these insanely powerful snowballs where you're just like, what do I do against all of this? They just curved out and hit me in the face with a jackrabbit, literally. So 7.5.
Like, yeah, I can't quite get into the 8 territory because it still just dies to, I know it's a cliche, but dies to bolt.
Mm-hmm.
But it is very good.
What was your rating?
7.5, yeah, not quite in that 8 to 9 category.
All right, we have the Warren Elder. 2 mana for a 2/2. Pay for creatures you control. Get +1/+1 till end of turn. Pretty common. It's a rabbit, so pretty normal. Good curve filler. I like the late game mana sink. It's not once per turn. It's not a tap, so you can dump 8 into it if you wanted to later. It's a relevant creature type. 5?
Selesnya wants to go wide, which is the rabbit deck, so it does just slot right in there. 5 works.
Next up.
Warren Warleader. 4 mana, 2 white for a 4/4 rabbit knight with offspring 2. Whenever you attack, choose 1. Create a 1/1 white rabbit creature token that's tapped and attacking. Or attacking creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn.
Whoa.
This seems pretty fantastic.
So for 6 mana, you can attack with both of them. They would both give all creatures a total of +2/+2. You'd be attacking with a 6/6 and a 3/3.
And these don't even have to attack. It's just whenever you attack with anything.
What? I thought they had whenever it attacked. It's whenever you attack. What? Huh?
So on the turn you play this, on turn, say it's only turn 4 and you don't get the offspring, your 3-drop that you played gets to make a 1/1 or gets +1/+1. And if you play it later on 6 and you got a bigger board, it's even more crazier.
9.
Agreed.
Our first 9. Let's go. Next up, Waxwane Witness. 4 mana for a 2/4 Bat Cleric, flying and vigilant. Whenever you gain or lose life during your turn, this gets +1/+0 until end of turn. It's a fine, common, fits in all the archetypes. Love the vigilance with the big fat bat booty. Yeah, it's a good card. It's good for what I want it to be doing. Even if I'm not in bats, 4 mana, 2/4 with flying and vigilance is okay.
Oh, it makes sense. This is kind of the weakest of in terms of payoffs that we've seen, but it's better in terms of for the bat deck.
Yeah,
but it's better statted.
You're right. It's weaker in payoffs, but I kind of expect my commons to be so.
Sure.
I think the average deck is fine to play this at like a 4.5, and then in the bats it'll go up.
4.5 seems fine, yeah.
All right.
And then Whisker Veil Forerunner. 4 mana, 3 and a white for a 3/4 Mouse Bard with Valiant. Whenever this becomes a target of a spell or ability you control for the first time each turn, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card with mana value 3 or less from among them. You may put it onto the battlefield if it's your turn. If you don't put it onto the battlefield, put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order.
Yep.
So Valiant, find a cheap creature and put it onto the battlefield if you want.
It's also a 3/4 for 4, which is pretty decent stats on its own. It's a relevant creature type. This is the kind of card that will snowball into some good value. You have to have the trigger for Valiant, but even the average deck I think will have enough of those to make this a solid card. I'm going to average it to like a 7. It's probably realistically like a 6/8.
It's never bad. 6/8 seems right. Just
yeah. It's going to be fine in any deck, and then in the Valiant deck it's going to be potentially game winning.
I like that. Yeah, 6/8 seems good, or 7 fun.
All right, that's the end of our white cards. What do you think, Yanks?
A lot of mouse and rabbit support, some okay bat support, not a ton of birds, but a few, and maybe like you suggested earlier, the flying and bird portion of it is more in blue, and white can provide the ground creatures for the helping non-flyers portion.
Yeah, it's one of the few of the archetypes that had like a split archetype, whereas all the other ones were like all bats, all whatever. And this was like, Azorius was very specifically birds helping non-birds. So like I liked that sort of dynamic, but we did see a decent amount. I think that overall, pretty happy with what we saw here in white. Love, love, love this freaking set so much. I'm so excited to get my hands on it. For those of you guys who are watching on YouTube, thank you so much for joining us. We will be doing blue next, so make sure you guys check out that episode. Don't forget to check out Cool Stuff Inc. There's the link and the 5% off discount code down below in the description. They help make these videos by sponsoring my channel and my content, and I am so appreciative when you give them a chance to give to earn your business. And yeah, leave us a comment. Let me know what you think of white, and let me know if you are excited for Bloomburrow. We'll see you next time for blue. Bye, guys.